All right, manic.mercurian here with your birth chart reading. This reading will be for Thursday, January 11th, 1990 at 2:20 p.m. in London, United Kingdom. And what will be interesting and definitely different with this reading compared to how I usually do readings is that you actually had a lot that you asked me that you specifically want to know about. And I really love this. I wanted to kind of showcase this because on the one hand, if you're wanting a reading from me and you may not have a lot of intention, maybe you're just saying, I'm just curious what you see when you pull up my chart. That's totally cool. I can do that all day, every day. I love, doing readings, and I have my own format that I do the readings in that seems to work pretty well. However, on the other hand, though, if, you can always tell me what's your intention, what's your motive, why is this interesting to you? Is there something you're struggling with in life, or do you want to know more about a certain part of your life? You can make the reading your own. You can tell me what direction to go in and kind of customize these things as well if you want to. So again, I just wanted to, bring that up. I love that you are so curious, that you have a lot, that you want to know my stance on astrologically. So I figured the way I would approach this is I'm actually going to go through my standard format first, talking about your, general personality, themes that you're dealing with, challenges, past life things, career, romance. I think that will provide kind of a nice framework and may already partially answer some of your questions. And then at the very end, I'll just run through your questions. I have your email pulled up in front of me here, and I can just make sure, if I haven't already answered your questions, that I can go from there. And hopefully by then I will already have set up somewhat of a foundation that we can just build off of and, make specific to your particular questions and interests. Okay, so all that being said, let's take a look at your chart here. So the first thing I noticed is that, clearly, I don't think it takes an astrologically astute person to notice that you have almost all your planets really clustered on one side of the chart. So this is extreme. Whenever you have a chart that is very focused on one thing, one pattern, one sign, one axis, for you it's very much focused on one side of the chart. Whenever you have a chart that's more focused on in a specific area like that, it makes the personality more extreme in the sense that you will have very extreme strengths as well as very extreme challenges or weaknesses. So I find that, for example, a lot of very famous people, celebrities, inventors, people who really change the world tend to have extreme charts because their skills, their abilities are so extreme in one area. But whenever you have that, you're taking away from a different area. Someone who is really active and outside changing the world may not be comfortable at home. Their private life may suffer as a result, etc. Astrology teaches us about these things. So that's the first thing I wanted to explain. For you specifically, the planets are mostly clustered around the descendant. The descendant is that little black triangle on the right side, and you have a 7th house Capricorn stellium, or group of planets. It's actually almost difficult to read because of how many planets are there. Uranus, Neptune, Mercury, Saturn, and the Sun are all in 7th house Capricorn. And then plus there are many planets kind of clustered around that. But I think that's by far the main focus, 7th house Capricorn. So what does that mean? So whenever you have planets clustered around the descendant, it means you will be more focused on other people. The descendant has to do with relationships, what your expectations are from other people, what kind of people you attract. And having, especially major planets like the Sun and Mercury in the 7th house, close to the descendant, this means that your partnerships are going to be extremely important for you in this life. Of course, I could hear a skeptic saying, aren't partnerships, relationships, those are important for everyone. Of course they are, but I'm talking in relative terms. They are extremely important for you, more so than most people. Like for you, your relationships are going to be a core part of your identity. You're not going to feel that you will naturally shine, and you have so much invested in relationships. You attract others. You work best working with other people, helping other people. You're great at understanding other people, being very empathetic. You thrive in this area, and you really aren't going to thrive, without other people. Basically, you're just you. And I think it's interesting because there is a contradiction there. All of this is in Capricorn. Capricorn is a very independent sign. And so you may still have many of those qualities of being very independent, yet at the same time, really needing those relationships almost to the point of being codependent. Like you may, that is sometimes a factor when you have major placements, especially, like the sun in seventh house. Your ego, your identity is so dependent on other people. It's almost like, if you don't have any strong partnerships or aren't around anyone, it's almost like you feel like you cease to exist. You're, weakened. You are out of your elements. Okay. So basically, I'm just saying your partnerships are very important. Let's say you're lacking partnerships, you're lacking relationships, you may crave that so much that you latch on to just whoever will come. But it's very important to you for you to be selective as well. I'm sure you probably already know that, because you are so sensitive, you're so open to who you are interacting with, who you're relating to. In other words, having these seventh house placements, it makes you an empath, makes you very empathetic. You're going to feel what everyone else is feeling. And so it will be very detrimental for you to be around negative people that are, angry or, make you feel a certain way. It's really important that you're with people that build you up, that, allow you to feel secure and, that you can relate to and work with. And that's something I think that you asked about that we'll talk about more later as well, that, you are Capricorn, you have many planets in Capricorn. You are goal-oriented. You want to achieve something. But again, because this is in the context of seventh house, which has everything to do with relationships and partnerships, you're not doing these things for yourself. You're not, some people would characterize Capricorn as, like a go-getter. They don't care about anything but money or whatever. You're definitely not that kind of person. You want to achieve something. You want to build something, but you want to do this with other people or for other people, perhaps. I already know a little of your background since you shared that with me through email, but, just speculating in general, basically what I just said, you are very ambitious, very goal-oriented, but this seems very social in nature, either working with someone to achieve what you want, working with other people, or working for other people, helping other people. There's a lot of themes involving helping or serving with seventh house as well. So yeah, I think that's the biggest thing that stands out to me. And again, going back to this whole idea of intensity and, this cluster, it makes those skills and the challenges intensified. So it means that you can thrive with relationships. You can be very socially intelligent. You can accomplish a lot through partnerships, relationships, interactions, and really excel in that area. But at the same time, this makes it more difficult to stand on your own and do something completely on your own. I think that may be strange for you to hear, maybe. But again, we're gonna talk. I'm sure I'll be talking a lot in this reading. We'll get more into this later as well. Okay, but yeah, that's the first thing I noticed. Huge cluster there. However, your chart isn't just a cluster. You do have Moon in Cancer, Gemini rising at the very end of the sign there. And I think something you asked about is this polarity, this dichotomy in your chart. Sun in Capricorn, Moon in Cancer. You said that that's how you found my channel, is through that video. Yeah, that is a huge polarity. It is a huge contradiction. So because you have Sun and Moon in opposite signs like this, you are a walking contradiction. And as you know, it's a huge challenge to manage that level of contrast that is within yourself. How do you balance that? How are you Cancer and Capricorn at the same time? Cancer moon shows that you're very emotional, very sensitive, that you know, have this whole range of feeling and emotion. You know, you can be very private. But having Sun in Capricorn and your other Capricorn planets as well shows that you're very ambitious. You don't want to just focus on how you're feeling in the moment. You want to focus on something greater, something more long term in nature, and that, you know, it's actually a fundamental part of your satisfaction and well-being to be knowing that, you know, you are growing, that you're building something that is going to apply to more than just today. Or maybe it doesn't really apply to, you know, like people with strong Capricorn placements, they don't even need to be rewarded in the moment. They're so focused on the long term. So how do you balance that with Moon and Cancer, which is all about the present? And, you know, I want to feel comfortable in the moment. I want to honor what I'm feeling right now. How do you balance all that? It is a challenge, as you know. We'll talk more about that. Of basically anything I'm saying, we'll probably talk more about in the reading. Yes, that is a challenge, but there's also huge potential there as well, because if you can learn to manage that balance, which I'm sure you can, I'm sure you have and will continue to do so, then it's beautiful. You have the best of both worlds, and you can use that in a really powerful way. Also, having Sun and Moon in opposing signs are not the most different signs that you could possibly combine. Those I would say would be quincunx. Like if your Moon was in Leo or Gemini, that would be perhaps even more different from Capricorn than Cancer. But in opposing signs like this, you know, the axis we call it, there are shared themes that run through both. And I think by focusing on those similarities, you can see, you know, you can find a balance. You can see that, you know, both signs, although they are opposite, they may have opposite approaches to what they're doing, but in a weird kind of backward way, they're looking for many of the same things. For example, Cancer and Capricorn are all about foundation and stability. They want stability. They crave stability. You know, Cancer is the sign of the home and family. Cancer craves what is already familiar to them. Capricorn is the builder, the constructor. So many have said, you know, Capricorn builds the home, or I forgot who originally said this, but Capricorn builds the home. They build, you know, the concrete and the wood and the walls, the frame, the structure. And Cancer fills the home. Cancer makes a house a home. Okay, but both are doing different, complementary yet equally important parts of basically the same process, you know, creating a structure, a foundation that allows them security, allows them peace or rest or success in the long term. Okay, they're both interested in a home. Does that make sense? Cancer and Capricorn are also both very private. They can be very guarded in different ways. There's also themes involving pessimism and optimism. So like Cancer, I think, can seem very bubbly and very optimistic, but deep down there is sort of a sadness and sometimes even a cynicism. Cancer is the first sign of summer, and so on the one hand you have summer beginning, woohoo, it's exciting, it's a time of fun, but on the other hand, Cancer is the first sign that initiates the days growing shorter in the northern hemisphere. So yes, it's the beginning of summer, but it's also the beginning of the end. Cancer knows inherently that, you know, fall and winter are coming. The darkness is coming. The darkness is encroaching. And so that's where you get these interesting opposing themes of being optimistic, being, you know, having a potentially very sunshiny personality and being really fun, but also at the same time having this kind of somberness. Okay. And Capricorn is kind of the same but opposite. Capricorn comes at the darkest time of the year, and Capricorn represents the beginning of winter. So that's where you get a lot of stoicism and, you know, a lot of coldness, being very serious. You know, we have to be serious. We have to survive. Yet at the same time, you know, although on the surface, I think people with Capricorn energies can be very cynical, skeptic, pessimistic, cautious. At the same time, deep down, I do think there's a resilient sense of optimism there, because Capricorn is the first sign where the light is coming back. The days are starting to get longer, beginning with Capricorn. And so that's why Capricorn is all about the long term. They know inherently that spring is coming, summer is coming, the light is coming, it's returning, the warmth, the energy is returning. It's not really here yet, but it's beginning to grow, it's beginning to come back. So that's how I would describe, Cancer on the surface being really warm and optimistic, but deep down being kind of somber. And Capricorn is the reverse. Capricorn is cynical, skeptical, miserly, but deep down, I think they are optimistic. If you weren't optimistic, why would you invest so much into the future? That seems like a very optimistic person to me. They may not be optimistic in the here and now, but they believe that they have a future. They believe that tomorrow is worth putting the time and putting the work into. Does that make sense? So I don't know if that helps at all, but these two signs, you are on both sides of this equation. So you experience all of that and more. You experience, I don't know. I think it may be very interesting to analyze if you're an optimist or a pessimist or a realist. And there are other energies. Gemini rising, I think, tends to be a little bit more upbeat. It's a childlike energy. So you are curious, you're wanting to learn, just as you told me. So, Gemini rising is, of course, a part of that, and it will influence things as well. But again, just focusing on this Capricorn Cancer axis, I think in some ways you likely are very pessimistic, very cautious. Cancer and Capricorn are both kind of conservative. They don't want to rock the boat. They want that security. They're not experimental in nature. They want to go with, the safe option, the safest bet. So you may relate to that in some levels. But on the other hand, they are looking to grow, though. They're looking for steady growth, again, building a home, investing in something. Capricorn may be the most obvious example of, investing in a career, building an empire of sorts. Almost every person with major Capricorn placements wants to be the CEO in the corner office. They want to be kind of like above everything in a way, they want to be the leader. They want to be in charge. They want to be the experienced one. Okay. So of course they want to, you have to invest in all that. That's a huge investment. But even Cancer as well, yes, on the one hand, they are so emotional. They want to honor how they feel in the moment. And so I think there is a lot of present focus from that. But at the same time, Cancer is the sign of the mother, of the child. What larger investment than, what a mother makes to their child, right? We're getting kind of poetic now. That's a huge investment. It's just more emotional in nature. It's more, it's not about achieving something personally that, of course part of it is personal, but I think Capricorn focuses more on what they want, maybe. And Cancer being so emotional, I think that, they naturally kind of draw in other people. That's why it is, it's the motherly energy. It's the nurturing energy. I don't know. We can talk more about that later as well. Okay, but what else can we talk about? So let's kind of put it all together here. So Cancer moon is probably, moon of course has to do with your emotions, your core personality. Cancer is probably the most emotional sign. Moon is in domicile in Cancer. So this means that you feel very strongly. You know how you feel. You, in many ways, know your boundaries, know your limits. I think that can be useful and complementary to your other placements like your Gemini rising, because having both of those shows that, yes, you are curious, you want to learn, you want to try new things, you can be very open. But at the same time, in many ways, you have the intuition of Cancer moon. So you know where things are going before they actually happen to a large extent. You know your boundaries, you know what you want. I think you said you were kind of an old soul or something, which of course makes sense with the Capricorn sun, Cancer moon. This is wise energy. This is energy of, like Cancer is the mother, Capricorn is often, the grandfather or grandmother. So anyway, so you may be, very cautious, very wise in the sense of, not having to make as many mistakes as other people, or, in it. Many people have to be experimental and try something and see it fail in order to gain the wisdom, not to do it again. You, though, have an innate common sense. Of course, you may make mistakes in your life. Everybody does. But you have some kind of innate wisdom, practicality, common sense. It's almost like you are more experienced than you are, which I think is where people, bring out the term old soul. So yeah, I don't know. I guess we're just talking about your general things that you're dealing with, themes that you're dealing with right now. But yeah, I guess what I was saying is that, you have a little bit of the best of both worlds when it comes to being, mature, responsible, cautious, yet at the same time wanting to learn and grow as well, wanting to, be open and curious. I do think you have a lot more direction than most people with Gemini rising would. Typically with Gemini rising, life is an adventure. There's not a lot of intention in it. You're mostly just kind of adapting and going with the flow and seeing what's behind the next hill, the next horizon, and then going from there. You, though, you may relate to some of that, of course. That is still relevant to you. But having all these Capricorn and Cancer placements means that you do have a lot of intention. You have a plan. You want to have a plan. You want to have the structure of a plan. You want to grow something in a certain way to reach a conclusion. I don't know. I think we talked enough about that, honestly. Let me just kind of look around. Mars is in Sagittarius. So again, that's kind of an interesting one because it's very different than Capricorn or Cancer. Mars and Sagittarius so Mars is, of course, your ambitions. It's your drive. So this may be important for you since you do seem like an ambitious person with all your Capricorn placements. So with Mars and Sagittarius, on the one hand, Mars is at home in Sagittarius because it's fire. So this means that you can be fiery. You're not necessarily always afraid of confrontation. You may be very ambitious, but because Mars is in Sagittarius, which is mutable, there is a fluidity there, an adaptability, even a directionlessness. So I think that's a very interesting addition to your chart, that yes, you are ambitious, but I'm getting mixed messages. There are certain placements saying that you know who you are, you know exactly what you want, you know where you want to go. But Gemini rising with Mars and Sagittarius show that you're also very experimental in some ways, in some times. You want to try something new. You don't know what you want. You are open. You're just open. So I do find that interesting. Maybe that will make more sense as I get deeper into your chart. Let's go back really quick to the dichotomy of Cancer and Capricorn. So I was saying Cancer moon is in domicile. There's a lot of strong feeling there. And I think there's a clarity that tends to come to those who have Cancer moon. I'm not sure what of this I talked about in my Capricorn Sun Cancer moon video, but having Cancer moon, you are so acquainted with your own feelings that you know exactly what you want, you know what you don't want, and it may be, I think it's baffling to many people who have Cancer moon to know that many people don't know what they want. They don't know how they feel. Many people may be removed from their own emotions. Their emotions may be fleeting or ambiguous, vague. And so I think in many ways it's a strength that you have such strong intuition, of course. Of course, that's a strength that comes from the strong emotion. But also the emotions themselves. You may encounter difficult situations where you may have to make tough choices, but at least you know where you stand. You don't have to figure that part out, okay? I find that refreshing. Like, even if you're in a tough place, at least knowing where you are, where you stand, there's huge value in that. So there's a huge strength there from Cancer moon. Combining that with Capricorn Sun, though, again, the main challenge is the difference there. But there are huge strengths there as well. Combining the intuition of Cancer moon, the intuition to kind of feel where things are going before they even happen. Even if you don't have prior experience, even if you haven't taken the time to analyze or learn about the situation. You may just feel it, you know. I think in many ways this kind of emotional intuition is superior to other means of coping with and responding to the world. In many ways it's superior to thinking or analyzing, because thinking and analyzing takes time, it takes effort. Emotional intuition is instantaneous, it's lightning fast, it's faster than thought, in my opinion. And again, it doesn't take past experience, at least not from this lifetime. So combining that emotional intelligence and intuition with the practicality, you know, the responsibility, practicality, common sense of Capricorn Sun, you know, this would give you very sound judgment, especially when you combine both of these. Very excellent judgment in any situation in life and with people. But I think this could especially be useful for, you know, building an empire, making something on your own, doing something. We'll talk more about that later. I keep saying that. Okay, we talked about Mars. We talked about your cluster. Some major dominant planets for you, I think, in my eyes, are Mercury and Saturn. I say this, and I don't know if you've taken, there's these sites that will tell you your most dominant planet, and I usually disagree with them, so I don't know how they calculate these things. But Mercury is your chart ruler. You are Gemini rising, so that makes Mercury the chart ruler. Mercury, though, is in Capricorn, so it's ruled by Saturn, and Mercury is also conjunct Saturn. So this means that there's a huge Saturn focus. So Mercury is the chart ruler, but Saturn is completely dominating and coloring and influencing Mercury. I'm going to talk about what all that means. Also, all of your planets in Capricorn and Aquarius are ruled by Saturn as well. So Saturn has rulership over your Neptune, Uranus, Mercury itself. So it's a final dispositor. I'll translate all this in a second. It also rules over Sun, Venus, your North Node, and your midheaven. So in other words, Saturn is a huge dominant force, probably even more so than Mercury. Okay, but let's talk about Mercury first. So Mercury being your chart ruler, this means that, you know, being Gemini rising, one of your main life missions, purposes, is to learn. You want to learn everything about everything. You know, there's probably, well, I already know because you told me, but there's multiple subjects, you know, that may appear very different that you are going to be interested in. You want to learn everything about these things, and this is great for just accumulating a lot of information. With Gemini rising, there's typically a youthful energy. There's and it may even come across naive at times, but this youthful, open energy or aura is exactly, you know, this is a great thing to have if you want to learn, because you stay in the energy of the child to some extent. You know, that is the energy that is most conducive to learning, to being open to learning and expanding. So that's a huge focus there. But in what way do you learn? What do you want to learn about? We can look to the rest of your chart for this. You know, Mercury is retrograde, so this shows that the way you learn and the way you communicate is going to be very unique to you. You may be drawn toward ideas that are very, you know, thought to be unusual, ideas that are not mainstream. The way you communicate, your opinions, all these things may be very unusual, unique to you. And Mercury retrograde, it also tends to make one a little bit more psychic, a little bit more open to spiritual things, astrology, things like that. So it makes sense that you're interested in all of that. And also Mercury retrograde tends to make one more intuitive. It makes you have a rich imagination, a rich inner world, especially combining that with Cancer moon. You know, it looks like you have a lot of intuitive ability and potential here for sure. Okay, but again, Mercury is conjunct Saturn, so this means that, you know, the way you learn, well, Mercury's in Capricorn, which is ruled by Saturn, and conjunct Saturn. So this means that the way you learn, the way you communicate is going to be very direct, yet at the same time it's very thorough. It's sort of slow in its approach. There can definitely be some rapidness with the Gemini rising, some quick moving around, adapting. But again, Saturn tends to slow things down, and having so many of your planets ruled by Saturn and Mercury conjunct Saturn, there's a lot of thoroughness there. You want to be really thorough, and so I think this maybe one reason why you're so selective when it comes to your partnerships, or selective in general. Um, you have a healthy skepticism. Typically when you have Saturn strong in your chart, it makes you authoritative, um, potentially skeptical, pessimistic, slower, more thorough. It also tends to bring about a lot of challenges. So this, you are a person who is frequently tested, frequently pushed and challenged. You likely have been through a lot of challenges, and this is what makes you stronger. Having strong Saturn in your chart makes you stronger and in many ways more capable, because of the challenging nature of its energy. Last thing I'll say about that is, again, authoritative. You want to be a leader. You want to be the experienced one, be the one helping others, being the one that has the answers. And I think combining that with, Gemini rising, it shows that, you are truly learning. You're constantly learning and adapting. And so I think that's an excellent combination for someone who is, wanting to be a teacher, a mentor, a coach, etc., whatever you are. But okay, so let's move on. So let's talk about your past life experience, major challenges in this life, and then where you're going from there, as well as a little bit about your upbringing. So South Node is in second house Leo, with North Node in 8th house Aquarius. So this tells me that in a past life you were very kind of self-focused. South Node in second house Leo. Second house Leo would be all about taking care of yourself, focusing on yourself, investing in yourself. Your main focus would be your own long-term security, your own identity, your own expression. What else? And South Node in Leo, it indicates you would have been like a Leo in a past life. So you may have been the center of attention. Everything was about you. And this isn't just selfish. Yes, it is self-focused, but this could mean that you were a leader as well, like a celebrity, or you were the center of attention. You had to be very animated, but it was all coming from a place of focusing on yourself. I think the reason why people, in experiencing these energies can be so captivating is that because they are focused on themselves, that's what allows them to be so confident and so captivating. So these are the things that you may have experienced in a past life, being very focused on yourself, a little bit self-involved. But from that, there'd be a lot of confidence, and in a kind of backward way, that could actually be helpful to other people. You could be entertaining, or you could have been a leader or something, because all eyes were on you. Coming into this life, you retain this energy. This means that, ever since your youth, you would be comfortable in the spotlight. You handle attention well. You're comfortable being a little eccentric as well. You're comfortable standing on your own, taking the lead, making a leap, and being in the spotlight for that. What North Node in 8th house Aquarius is indicating is that this makes more sense with something you were saying. It's more comfortable for you to stand on your own and be very independent, this is very contradictory because of this stellium in 7th house, which is all about connecting with other people. Yet at the same time, what your past life, your history was all about was standing on your own, being your own person, being very independent, doing things yourself. So what North Node in Aquarius 8th house is suggesting is, keep the strengths of South Node in 2nd house Leo. Keep those strengths of being independent, autonomous, confident, but also learn to incorporate when to involve other people or other factors in general. So, rather than just being very confident and focusing only on what you are wanting in the moment. Focus on the long term. Focus on what do other people want? How do my actions affect other people? All of these things. North Node is an Aquarius. Aquarius thinks holistically. They think about, the whole society, the whole framework, the long term, things like that. And again, North Node is an 8th house, which has everything to do with, partnerships, like really investing in other people, cooperating with others, sharing resources with others. So all of these things may be a little bit less natural for you. It may be a lot easier for you to just do things on your own, handle everything yourself. This is common with Capricorn placements as well. So now I'm getting to know things a little better here. And again, that's great. That's a huge strength. It's great to be autonomous. You can keep that. But I think it's natural, though, having so many Capricorn placements, having such lofty goals. Eventually, you are going to want to achieve things that involve other people, affect other people. You may need to collaborate, basically. Especially, the bigger you get, the more I think it's going to involve other people. How else do I put that? I don't know. So I think this is almost like, it kind of paints like a natural progression for you of starting out very autonomous, very independent. And I do think, this is something you said that you may struggle with is, learning how to find the right people, the people that share your vision, someone with, complementary interests or skills. And there are a lot of challenging parts of that. How do you invest in another person? People are fundamentally unpredictable. How do you find someone that you can trust? How do you know when it's appropriate to involve someone in the first place? All of these things are going to be challenges that you likely have already experienced and will continue to experience. But this is going to get easier with time, okay? A major breaking point is around 18, 19. There's going to be another major time in your late 20s. No, you already went through that, though. My point is, there are certain points of life where these things kind of come to a head and where we may make major progress. But in general, we get better at this over time. I'm sure these things, you probably know all these things. You've probably already grown a lot in these areas, okay? But talking about your challenges and your past life experiences, that's basically what I see. Speaking of challenges, let's talk about Saturn. So I would speculate that the Saturn, I don't know if you know what the Saturn return is. Okay, so let me briefly describe that. Saturn return is something that happens when transiting Saturn approaches, conjoins, and then passes your natal Saturn placement. This is something that we experience in our late 20s, so age, let's just say 28, 29, 30. And it typically results in us becoming a lot more mature. Oftentimes there are challenges or increased responsibilities that come to us at that time. We may make major life changes. And again, rather than this, experimentalism that is so abundant in our 20s where we're just trying new things, having fun, we tend to view life a lot more seriously. We want to build something new. We want to invest in something. We start thinking about the long term. Okay. So this is something everyone goes through at around the same age. It has a reputation for being very challenging. Depending on the way your chart is set up, though, it may be different. It's different for different people. It may come to you in different areas, challenge you in different ways. It may be more or less challenging for different people. For you, because Saturn is sandwiched in, it's between your Sun and your Mercury. It's pretty close to your Neptune and Uranus. Because Saturn is close to so many other planets, I would speculate your Saturn return would be very intense, very challenging. And this was only a few years ago. This was 2018, 2019, I think, somewhere in that vicinity when Saturn was crossing through Capricorn. This was during the time of, I think we all know what was going on 2018, 2019, 2020. Those years for you may have been not just challenging, but very life-changing because you were growing up a lot. You were being challenged by a lot of new things that were pushing you in a new direction and gaining a lot of experience, a lot of insight from that. So I would speculate that, those years were very, what's the word? I don't know, important, shaping for you. They were a big deal. Okay. Okay, well, let's talk about Saturn though. So, okay, Saturn is in seventh house Capricorn along with many of your planets. So this shows that for you, the main challenge involves your relationships, your partnerships, but also Saturn's in Capricorn, so that would be, being challenged with your career, your occupation, with what you do for society, with your socioeconomic status, things of this nature. Being somebody, basically, being somebody in the world, being a leader, being, feeling like you've achieved something. All of these things may be very difficult for you, and it's interesting because on the one hand, because you have so many planets in this area, it shows that you're naturally oriented toward these things and are likely to be very skilled there. So you're likely to be very skilled when it comes to, achieving something, being somebody, being a leader. But at the same time, because Saturn is there, you take these things very seriously. These things may have been delayed for you. You may have gone through a lot of trials and tribulations to get to where you are today and where you will continue to grow in the future, if that makes sense. So, in other words, the challenges that are typically represented by Saturn, for you, it's much more relevant to the rest of your life than it would be for most people. For most people, they may have their planets kind of scattered out. Saturn is in one place. So Saturn shows they may be challenged in this area, but their sun is over here, so they're really more focused on that. For you, though, it's all one and the same. So what you are mostly focused about also happens to be something that you are deeply challenged by. I think in many ways you may want to challenge. You seek a challenge. You want to accomplish something. You want to do something. Capricorn is the sea goat. So they're the only creature that, can swim in the depths of the ocean and get their little hoofs and crawl onto the beach and hike all the way up to the top of the mountain. That's their story. That's what you want. You don't want an easy life necessarily. You want to achieve something. You want to get to the top of the mountain. You want to be the leader. So anyway, I guess what I'm trying to say is having Saturn there shows that, what you are challenged by also happens to be what you are mostly focused on, or vice versa. You're mostly focused on what challenges you. You want to challenge yourself. You don't want to run away from the hard parts of life. You want to go right into those and become stronger. So that's great. That's very admirable. And quick side note, you do have Moon in Cancer, so there may be a small part of you that is reluctant, that is resistant, that is hesitant, that doesn't want to be challenged. You want to just stay. Moon in Cancer wants to be cozy, wants to just stay in bed all day, you know what I mean? So you do have that part of yourself. However, I think there's an even greater part of you that, again, it's all about balance. Let's honor yourself in the moment. Indulge in comforts when it's appropriate. You can't just invest in the future and not have any happiness, any indulgence in the here and now. It's all about balance. So having Cancer Moon, I think this can ideally, it can actually allow you to go even farther, because you're not someone who's going to get burned out or be constantly just only investing in the future. You're also going to be someone who is, having a healthy amount of allowing yourself to be comfortable in the moment while you work on your goals or projects. Okay. That's a little different, but those are kind of your main challenges. Let's briefly talk about your upbringing, because I don't think you asked about that much at all. So I'm just going to briefly go through that. I've already talked for 45 minutes too. So, okay, having sun and moon in opposite signs like this indicates that your parents were very different. They may have not gotten along. They may have had very different parenting styles with you. If you grew up with only one person, that person may have had a lot of contrast within themselves. And so growing up, it's very confusing. It's, because there's already a lot of contrast in your home environment, likely. So growing up, you didn't know how to act, is it this way or that way? But this difference, this contrast allows you greater empathy. You can understand other points of view. It's great for understanding ideas as well and learning, because you can naturally hold two conflicting ideas in your head at the same time. You can listen to someone describing a viewpoint that you disagree with, but you can still see where they're coming from. Okay, so there are huge strengths from having the luminaries in conflicting, opposing planets like that when it comes to your upbringing. Other than that, IC and South Node are both in Leo, so that shows you would have been a very outgoing kid, very stubborn, very fiery, very much like Leo. You may have been much more spontaneous and fiery and kind of childlike as a child, more so than you are today. So that kind of makes sense. That's, expected, I guess. But not everyone's like that, though. Some people go the other way. But yeah, you would be very boisterous, very outgoing. I think growing up, you would tend to chill out a little more and be a little more detached. But growing up, you'd be very fiery for sure. So I don't know if that's interesting to you. Okay, let's move on. Let's talk about the career a little bit. I'll go through what I typically talk about with career. I know that you asked, I think, some things about that, though. So I like to illustrate some strengths that you have at this point, usually. And, okay, with this, overabundance of Capricorn and Saturn energy, I think it's very clear you want to be a leader. You want to do something on your own. However, again, it's all 7th house, so I think it has to do with, like I already kind of know, so I don't want to cheat, but it would make sense for you to work one-on-one with clients, or something where you're working with one other person. So either having a business partner where you are both, doing everything together, or where maybe you're independent. I think that would make even more sense because Capricorn is so independent. Makes sense. I could see you being very independent, wanting a lot of autonomy, but working for, clients, working one-on-one with people, because you're very independent, but you also thrive with working one-on-one with people. So that to me says, some kind of contractor or something that is, servicing different people. Midheaven is in Aquarius, so this would indicate, you tend to thrive when it comes to, professionally or in public. You thrive when it comes to working with people of different ideas, different socioeconomic backgrounds, different cultures, different beliefs. So I think that this is a great position for being a leader. Midheaven represents who you are in public and your reputation, your career. And it's also ruled by Saturn. So again, this points to you wanting to be a leader, wanting to lead by example, if not even more so being a leader. Again, another placement indicating you want a lot of autonomy. You're not going to be happy being barked at by someone you don't truly respect. You want, if you do work for someone else, for one, it's got to be someone you respect or look up to. And for two, you still are going to require a level of autonomy to, do your own thing. No one likes being micromanaged, but based on your chart, it would just really drive you crazy, more so than, the average person. You don't want to be told what to do. You want to be autonomous. I think this is especially important for you with your work. You want to be your own person. You want to be in control of your destiny. Others are not like that. Some people may enjoy the security of working for someone else, like, someone with Virgo placements or something like that. But you want that kind of autonomy, I think. One other thing too, Midheaven Aquarius. Midheaven again is career, reputation. Aquarius has a lot to do with technology and online activities. So this could point to working online, working through, social media. Again, applying this to what else we talked about. It could have to do with working one-on-one with clients through the internet, online. That would be something I could see for sure. I could also see you being a leader in the sense of, well, no, not really. I was going to say being like a pastor or, having like a congregation, or even if that's like talking to an audience on YouTube or something. But I'm not sure I'm super committed to that for you, though, because, again, that's not really having to do with a partnership. That would be you talking to a group of people. You have so much in 7th house. I think you work best one-on-one, I think, with others. So I don't think you're here looking for me to tell you what you should do career wise, but talking about career though, that's kind of what I see, if that makes sense. Okay, let's talk romantically, and I don't think you asked about this either, so I'm gonna make it a little. Did you ask about this? Let me pull up your email real quick. You did ask a bit about that. Okay, so we talked about Venus, Mars, and the descendant. To me, these are the best three placements for indicating your attraction, desire, romantic experiences, long-term compatibility as well. Let's talk about Mars because I think that's the least important. So Mars has mostly to do with like sexual desire, attraction, drive. Mars is in Sagittarius. Mars does have a lot to do with what kind of person you're attracted to as well. So Mars being in Sagittarius means you can be a little bit fiery in these areas, and you would be attracted to someone else who can be fiery as well, someone adventurous. All right. I'm actually just going to leave that there because I'm going to come back to this because your descendant is also in Sagittarius. But before we get into that, let's talk about Venus as well. Venus is in Aquarius. This means that you can actually be a bit, how do I put this? Like, I think in most areas of life, you can be very confident. You can stand alone. You can be very independent. You're not afraid with being expressive, being very direct. When it comes to relationships, though, and romance and attraction, excuse me, the more you engage in these kind of romantic experiences, the more it may actually be difficult or uncomfortable for you to be expressive of how you feel romantically. Venus is in Aquarius. Venus represents, among other things, it represents your approach to relationships. And Aquarius is not comfortable talking about feelings or emotion. It's a little bit more detached or aloof. Excuse me. So that tells me you may be attracted to someone else who is more outgoing, who wears their heart on their sleeves a little more so than you do. That way they can, bring these things up and you don't have to. A different way of putting it is Aquarius to me is a leader, but it mostly likes to lead by example. It actually tends to enjoy other personalities that are really outgoing, so they don't always have to initiate in certain ways. And again, your Venus is there, so this is how you are with relationships and love and things like that. So again, this to me says you are attracted to someone else who's strong-willed, and you are strong-willed in relationships. You're not going to change for anyone. You can be kind of set in your ways in that regard. But at the same time, you're not really looking to initiate a whole lot. You may want someone else who's a little bit more fiery, a little bit more transparent, who wears their heart on their sleeves. Maybe someone who's a little bit more emotional than you, more passionate. Another thing too, Venus in Aquarius, Venus has to do with romance, attraction, like we said, a little bit having to do with sexuality as well. And Venus being in Aquarius is counterculture. Aquarius is rebellious. So many people who have Venus in Aquarius are LGBT. They're trans or bisexual or homosexual, or they're a little bit experimental. They're a little bit on the fringe, romantically or sexually. So I'll just put that out there for whatever it's worth. Something to add here as well, you have Venus retrograde. This is very rare. Venus spends less time retrograde than any other planet, and so most people do not have this. It makes you a little bit more inhibited when it comes to relationships and romance. You really want to be thorough and selective. You naturally you really and especially the way it's in Aquarius and combined with all your Capricorn placements and your Saturn energy, it really looks like you're not someone that's into flings and hookups and super passionate experiences with one person and then now you're with someone else. It looks like you tend to be a little slow. You want someone you can really invest in. You take these things seriously. You want to be slow. You want to be thorough. So, okay, but and one more thing. Venus, along with Mars, shows what kind of person you're attracted to. So Venus in Aquarius. Aquarius is an oddball sign. It means you're attracted to someone Maybe intellectual, intelligent, someone quirky, unusual, someone different than everything else. You're wanting that uniqueness, that eccentricity. That's what's attractive for you. You're wanting someone, different. Someone who has their own opinions, someone who stands out, someone not like everyone else. And I think especially combining, Venus and Aquarius with Mars and Sagittarius, both of these are a little bit similar. They're both showing you're wanting someone rebellious, intellectual, intelligent, philosophical maybe, someone who's a little bit sporadic or unpredictable, someone a little bit, adventurous, kind of rowdy at times, rowdy yet intellectual at the same time, analytical, but also boisterous and even belligerent. Okay. That's what you get when you combine Aquarius with Sagittarius. So that's what you're attracted to. And this is very different than how you yourself are. You yourself, have most of your planets in Capricorn and Cancer. So you are, again, you're more cautious. You're wanting someone more outside of the box, more wild. So this often happens where I see you would be more of the rock. You're the grounded one. You're the responsible one. You're attracted to someone who is more of a dreamer, more of a wild card. Okay. More adventurous, more spontaneous, more impulsive, maybe, than yourself. Maybe. And okay, so I haven't gotten to the descendant. Descendant, more than anything, more than Venus or Mars, indicates the type of person you would best work with in a partnership, romantic or otherwise. Descendant is in Sagittarius, so because Descendant and Mars are both in Sagittarius, both of these have somewhat to do with attraction and compatibility. It's showing that you're really wanting someone like Sagittarius, not just wanting someone like that, but that's what you'd best work with long term. So what is that? So that would mean, someone who is fiery, charismatic, spontaneous, someone who takes the lead. Again, someone, Sagittarius is unique among the fire signs of being intellectual and analytical, but they're also fiery. So they're charismatic, charming, outgoing, spontaneous, impulsive, but also intellectual and intelligent as well. You're wanting, someone, what else? Fiery. So this could literally be someone who has strong Sagittarius placements. That could be very attractive to you. But it could also be maybe the other fire signs, Aries or Leo. They're going to take the lead. They're going to initiate. They're going to be very forthright, very confident, adventurous, charismatic. That could be attractive because any of these fire signs will be similar to Sagittarius. Aries in particular, I'm definitely looking at because, yes, again, it's similar to Sagittarius. So there could be some attraction there, some chemistry, some sexual chemistry. You could work best with them long term as well. But also Aries is a cardinal sign, so in a way it does clash with your Capricorn and Cancer placements. But this clash is not necessarily the worst thing in the world. It could actually be good. Sometimes with square aspects, I find that there can be tension. There could be attraction. In other words, someone with Aries placements, it's going to square your sun and moon. And so basically, you may disagree on a lot. You may be very different in some ways, but you at least see each other. You understand each other. You may disagree, but you can understand and respect each other with Aries. Aries is very independent. Aries is very goal-oriented. You are these things as well. You are just these things in a more stable, grounded, long-term kind of way than Aries. Aries is more impulsive, more spontaneous. But you may love or hate this idea, I'm not sure, but Aries does seem particularly interesting to me. So Aries or Sagittarius. Leo, I'm not as in love with for you among the fire signs. Yes, it's similar to the other fire signs, so it could be attractive, but Leo is fixed fire. They're more wanting stability. They want to have fun. They want to have a good time. They want to live in the moment. I think you are much more ambitious. You're much more focused on the long term. You're focused on constant change in the sense of, growth and ambition and, working on the next project. And Leo, they can be ambitious, but they're more, focused on enjoying the moment and stability. You're stable in the sense of constant growth, but they're stable in the sense of just stability. Let's live in the moment type of thing. So, there are differences there. I think it would just kind of clash with the rest of your chart. It does oppose Venus, so you may find Leo attractive in the sense that but this would kind of be with any fire sign. They are, off the cuff. They wear their heart on their sleeves. They are very expressive when it comes to how they feel, especially when it comes to attraction or romance. So, you could kind of blend in with that. You could go hand in hand with that, I think. So Leo, I could see you being attracted to, but I don't see it working long term really, unless there are other placements in their chart, of course, that say otherwise. But mostly I'm looking at Sagittarius and Aries. Those are probably the main signs I would look at for your compatibility. Let's briefly go through the elements here. So the air signs, you do have Venus and Aquarius like we talked about. So you're going to be attracted to people that are intellectual, different, unusual, like we talked about. So that could literally be someone with Aquarius placements. It could also be someone with Libra or Gemini placements as well. Gemini in particular is going to be more of a friendship energy though, because you have your rising there. You are already like Gemini, so it's not going to be as interesting or attractive working romantically with someone who has those energies as well. This, Gemini, or maybe even other air signs in general, Gemini and Libra in particular, I think it's going to be more of a friendship than a romantic connection, generally speaking. Again, unless there are other placements in their chart skewing the compatibility in a different direction. Okay, and then let's talk about the earth signs. So you have no placements in Taurus or Virgo, but like we've mentioned, you have many planets in Capricorn. You are very earthy, probably more than any other element. So you're practical, down to earth. You're not risk taking so much. You're more cautious, practical, down to earth, good work ethic. These are all earth, themes. So yes, you're going to relate a lot to people who have not just Capricorn placements, but Taurus or Virgo as well. Any of these people, any of these placements will be, all these earth keywords, down to earth, practical, no nonsense, slow to change, wanting stability. So you're going to relate really well. But again, this to me is more of a friendship dynamic. It's not something that you're attracted to. It's not something that's going to be mutually beneficial in the sense of, it's not complementary in nature. We're dealing with someone who is similar to you. I think it's more just of an easy connection. So there's not tension there. There's not really attraction. It's more just easy. It's more of a, friendship type of thing with any of the earth signs really. Yeah. I think Taurus would be the least interesting to you because, again, they're fixed. They're very stable. You are wanting growth and you're looking to the next mountain to climb. You're not wanting that total stability. Virgo may be kind of interesting for you because they are intellectual. You are wanting to learn a lot. So you could learn from them. They could learn from you, whatever. That could be interesting. But again, I really don't see that romantic at all for you, though. I see that more friendship-wise or maybe like business or something like that. Okay, let's talk about the water signs. You really like water more than any other element, I would say. Water and fire. Water, well, except you have Cancer moon, though, right? So that's a huge placement. So, okay, so moon and Cancer, that is a really strong water placement. So I'm trying to think of how to approach this. I think with other water signs, I definitely don't see you being attracted to them. Water signs are, the main distinguishing factors that they are the most emotional. And so in some ways you will relate because you are emotional too. You have, you have Cancer moon. But you're not just that. You have many other placements which are saying, you're very practical as well. And other people who have water placements, Pisces, Cancer, or Scorpio, they're unlikely to be as practical as you are, as goal-oriented as you are. So you may relate in some areas, but you may not relate in others. I could see this maybe being a friendship or a kind of a lighter connection. I really don't see water signs being deeply intriguing to you, especially romantically. Water signs, I would say, out of the four elements, they're one of the least ambitious, I would say. Scorpio can be ambitious, but these are all intensely emotional. They are exploring emotion. I don't think that's something that would be deeply intriguing or useful for you in this life, really. So basically, Aries or Sagittarius, that's what I'm looking at. Okay, I basically covered everything. This is already over an hour long, so I'm going to bring up your email. And I'm going to read off your checkpoints, your dashes, your list. So you said you'd like me to focus on the following themes in the reading: how to find balance with so much polarity, such as opposing sun and moon, and all the 8th house activity. So I want to make a couple of distinguishing statements, I guess. I do use equal houses, so I'm not sure. Most people start out with Placidus or maybe whole sign. There are different house systems, so I'm not sure what all the 8th house activity is that you're referring to. Like I said, I use equal houses, so that's what I'm showing now. And in this version of your chart, there's not a lot in the 8th house. North node, Venus. So it is definitely an important place with a North node and Venus there. And technically your midheaven is in the 8th house. But it's not, to me, 7th house is the main focus with all those planets there. Another distinguishing thing I want to make too is that many modern astrologers connect 8th house to Scorpio, and they say this is a really intense house. It's emotionally intense. I have a different view on it. 8th house corresponds to the part of the sky that is not immediately above the western horizon, but the one above that. 7th house is just above the western horizon. 8th house is above that. When we experience, like, let's say every day the sun traveling through the 8th house, it's kind of like mid-afternoon. It's actually not an intense time at all, typically. This is the energy of the mid-afternoon nap, or getting off work, or maybe you're at work but you're taking a break. There's a lull in the energy. It's it's not sunset yet or anything like that. We're not wrapping up the day, but it's kind of like a break, and it's almost kind of void. There's almost an emptiness there. So that's where in some ways houses are a lot like signs, but I think 8th house is actually less like Scorpio than, like, most houses are more like their respective signs than 8th houses. I don't view 8th house, I don't view it as an intense house. You may hear other astrologers say maybe a different perspective. So anyway, those are the things I would talk about. The 8th house. I see your sun in 7th house, moon in 1st house. So I do see a lot of polarity there. 8th house activity, I'm not sure. I think I pretty much covered that. For one, I don't view it as intense. And for two, I don't view it as intense in your chart because there is enough there that it's important, but not, it's not dominating your whole chart by any means. Venus is in 8th house, so it's showing your, that's, love life, attraction, things like that. North node is in 8th house, so, you're growing, you're, wanting to learn about partnerships and things like that, where we talked about that. You will thrive, when it comes to working with other people and, learning about those boundaries. But that's about it. Those are the main kind of bullet points. And I don't really, with equal houses, midheaven, for you, it's an 8th house. I don't read a whole lot off of that, though. I just focus on the house of the midheaven, or the sign. So anyway, yeah, I don't see a lot about 8th house. But yes, the polarity though, sun and moon opposing. I think I kind of covered that actually though in the beginning. One way to find balance is focusing on the commonalities between the two placements. There are actually a lot of shared themes that run through opposing signs. Sun in Capricorn, moon in Cancer, you can be guarded. There are elements of kind of like tribalism with both of these signs, with being guarded, like with having walls, with wanting structure. Capricorn wants structure. Cancer is the crab. It has a shell, so there are a lot of similarities. You're wanting structure, stability, discipline. You're wanting a foundation, a home. You're searching for security. By finding those commonalities between these opposing energies, you can connect the two and find balance there. Okay, that would be the main advice I would give, I guess. And other than that, I think I think it just naturally gets easier as you mature and age. When you're young, you feel these energies clashing and you don't even know what to do about it. But as you get older, you tend to accept these things in yourself. And a lot of it is about balance too. A lot of it is about combining them and finding the commonalities. But a lot of it as well is just about balancing the two, or sometimes making compromises. So like I said, there are some ways that these signs are, very different. Cancer wants short-term comforts in the here and now. Capricorn is all about the long term. But again, this can be a huge strength. You are focused on both. Both are important for anyone. Both of us need, any of us need to find comfort in the here and now as well as the long term. So for you, it's just that much more relevant. Okay, so you have to honor yourself in the moment and honor how you feel, but also be working toward a better tomorrow, a better next year. Okay, so yes, that may be difficult at times. How do I balance both of these? But on some level, this is a balance we all deal with and struggle with from time to time. It's just more relevant for you. This is what your whole identity is focusing on in this lifetime. Okay. Hopefully I've listed enough kind of ideas to get you thinking, or get the ball rolling. I'm not trying to imply that you're not thinking already, but we can talk about that more, I guess. But those are the main things: finding the commonalities between the two energies and compromising on the differences that are irrevocable, or in like some differences will be so fundamentally different that there is no way to really satisfy both. And then, from there you just have to make a compromise. I'm not sure what else to talk about with the differences of these two signs. But there's a lot of strength there. Again, the intuition and emotion of Cancer with the practicality and discipline of Capricorn, that's huge. There's also a lot of creativity that comes from the feeling and the passion of Cancer Moon, and combining that creativity with the work ethic of Capricorn, boom, that's dynamite. There's a lot. I think it's more challenging having planets opposing like this, but it's also, there's also a lot of potential in it. It's also potentially more powerful for sure. Hopefully that helps to answer that. How to let taking care of my body, exercise, and diet become a priority because you haven't done that yet. Okay, that's kind of interesting. So these things make me think 6th house. We tend to look at the 6th house for these. 6th house is kind of like maintenance, how you deal with maintenance of your life, like, diet. Also applies to money to some extent, or work. But yeah, nutrition, lifestyle, habits, things like that is mostly 6th house. And your 6th house, it makes sense that you wouldn't be super focused on that. You don't have a lot going there. You're much more focused on the 7th house, partnerships, relationships. And 6th house, you have Mars there. So Mars is a malefic. It tends to make things, it's a troublemaker. So Mars in your 6th house could indicate, health issues or extremes in health. Maybe focusing on health too much or not enough. Having health issues or things like that. So how to do those things? I'm not sure the extent that I can really answer that. I can definitely recognize this in your chart, as I did, sort of. With Mars being in Sagittarius, on the one hand, I could see how, with Gemini rising and Venus in Aquarius, I could see how you may enjoy the theoretical. You may enjoy being online or learning a lot, being in the mind, operating from the mind. Focusing on your goals and things like that, your dreams, your visions. But I can also see potential when it comes to, being in your body. We all have to, engage with physical experiences to be in our body more, I think. You do have many placements in Capricorn, so earth signs are notorious for loving nature, wanting to be in nature, wanting to have physical experiences. And Mars is in Sagittarius, which is showing that you can have a lot of energy. So I would think that exercise would be, I could see how exercise would be something that you may not do a lot, like you're saying you aren't doing it enough. But I could also see how you could have a passion for that. So maybe it's just finding the right thing for you. Or you could combine both of those. Like, again, your chart looks like a very goal oriented person. Maybe you could even still be working, but doing so in nature, outside. I know that's not really exercising, but that's maybe relevant. Or I think it's also great to take breaks. I could see how you may be someone who become so involved in what you're doing that you get maybe tunnel vision at times. And so I think oftentimes it's great to, take a break. I'm actually getting into exercising myself. I don't know if this will be helpful, but I'm viewing it as a stimulant in a way. By exercising, getting the blood flowing, it's great for just getting a lot of ideas and inspiration and being energetic as well, because sometimes I could be a little low energy. I'm just saying this because I don't know if it can be helpful for you, but I think it's fundamentally important to exercise, at least for me, to maintain the inner child, to maintain the curiosity and the energy. If your heart rate never gets up and you're always just working, and where is the excitement there? I think things may become stale. You have to keep energy moving. Like if energy becomes stagnant, that's where you get, mold and mildew. That's where you get, a pond that is covered in plants or fungus or whatever. You know what I mean? Like you got to keep the river flowing. We are energy, we are water. So, I think connect it to what you're already doing. It's going to be something that is beneficial for your work. And again, I don't know how obsessed you are with work, but I feel like that's, a major focus for you. So I think just realizing how they connect all together, maybe that'll help with motivation. I don't know if you're struggling with motivation. I think just focusing on how everything, like, rather than seeing it as, I have to work, but, I should also, take care of my body and exercise, see how it all influences each other. It all affects each other. Even if you're just focusing on work, if you want to have the best work or the best, if you want to achieve your goals in the best kind of way, you're going to, have a good diet and exercise, because these are the things that, put you in the best state of mind possible, that allow you to have the best ideas or the most energy or whatever. Does that make sense? So I don't know if that helps at all. I'm not sure what else to say about that. How to find my tribe given how much introspection I need. That's interesting. And how difficult I find it to express my truth and set boundaries when I put everyone else's needs before my own. See, that's what I'm talking about. 7th house. That sounds like 7th house to me. Being an empath, on the one hand, you're so independent. So that makes it more clear to me why you would be maybe a little bit alone, because on the one hand, you're so independent, so autonomous, you can do things on your own. And then on the other hand, you're so empathetic. You can get swept away by what other people are feeling and saying or doing. So that makes more sense now. But even though I can be very avoidant personality and need space, I really thrive on being with the right people. Again, yeah, that's kind of, I promise I didn't cheat, by looking at your email. I did look at the email before this, but I can see this in your chart. That makes a little more sense now. So what I recommend, it's kind of like, how they say, like, wherever there's like a poison in nature, usually the antidote is close by. So like where I'm from, there's stinging nettles that, but next to the stinging nettles, there are ferns, which you can rub on the, wound, and it makes the itching go away. That's how I view these things in astrology as well. That's how it tends to be, I think. So for example, and let me bring up your email again, because I want to stay on point. How to find your tribe it sounds like there's this struggle of, you want to be with people, you need people, but at the same time, like a lot of times it's easier to be on your own. Like you want to find your tribe. Okay, so let's talk about this like poison and antidote approach, like metaphor. So, the poison, not that it's like a bad thing necessarily, but the struggle here is, being empathetic and having to balance these things. But you have strengths as well. So, for example, seventh house, being so empathetic, you can get swept away with what other people are feeling. You can be very sensitive to the states of that other people are experiencing or what they're doing. But you can also be really excellent at understanding other people. And so in a way, you can use this understanding of other people to be selective in, who you expose yourself to, like energetically, of course, who you are around. Another big one, though, is Cancer Moon, and Capricorn Sun, I guess. You are, I would think you'd be naturally very selective with people. You have the intuition of Cancer to really feel a person, like emotionally, to feel their intentions, to feel, where is this going? What does this person want from me? What is this person all about? You would be excellent at that. You have Gemini rising, you have Cancer Moon, you have a seventh house stellium. You are excellent not only in the detached, like intellectual, analytical way of doing this, of analyzing people, understanding them, but also the emotional intelligence and intuition of feeling, not through the mind, but emotionally just feeling someone's intentions, feeling, good or bad about a person. So my point is, you have these abilities, apply those abilities to know who to be around or who not to be around, to get to know someone very quickly and understand them, and then say, okay, do I want to be around this person more or less? What should the nature of this connection be? I think that would allow you to, I don't know if this is helpful, how to find your tribe. I don't know, let's see. Yeah, I would say, the very placements that make you vulnerable and sensitive to what other people are doing also make you good at reading people, good at understanding people. So, use that. It would be my advice. My other advice too is, and again, I don't know if any of this is helpful. I'm kind of just going out on a limb, but you talk about finding your tribe. And again, this is something, I think I talked about this earlier with all major Capricorn placements. You are so independent, so autonomous. That's what allows you to be so goal oriented and accomplish a lot. Yet at the same time, there comes a time where you need help, you need cooperation. Let's say, you're building an empire. Let's just literally go with building an empire. So let's say you are, of course this is allegorical, it's a metaphor, but you're building an empire, you want to be the king or queen. You are going to need advisors. You're going to need a military. So you're going to need like a military general if you aren't one, if that's not your background. You're going to need someone, who knows all about the other countries that you're going to have to, represent yourself to. You might even need like messengers or something, or, you're going to need a lot of helpers. And you're also going to even the other countries themselves you're going to work with. There are so many, the bigger the project, the bigger, as I'm sure, the bigger the project, you're building an empire of your own. I would think maybe it's not so easy, but I would think that this would just happen naturally, at least in the terms of, as you go your own way and, create something on your own. I would think that it would kind of result in your exposure to others who are doing something similar, or maybe they're seeking your services, or does that make sense? And then from there you could kind of use your you know your own intentions, you have dreams or goals, so you will know how someone could be useful to helping you achieve those goals, or again, it could be more in terms of someone providing a service for you providing a service for other people. Does that make sense? I feel like this isn't very helpful, but how to find your tribe. I'm not sure what else to say. You could also use astrology. Well, I guess I just don't know what you mean. Like, you need to know how to find people, or you're already around people, you're just not sure how to progress. I guess I'm not really sure exactly what you mean. So I think I'm just gonna leave that at that. I've kind of answered to the extent that I can, I think. How to believe you are worthy, given Chiron in first house, wounding, very tough circumstances growing up, physical and emotional abuse. So this to me doesn't surprise me at all, especially having all your strong Capricorn placements. There tends to be, roughness early on, hardship, challenge. Again, this is what makes you strong, but it's difficult. And Chiron in the first house. This is surprising to me, though, in the sense that I'm surprised that you struggle with believing you are worthy, to be totally honest, because yes, a lot of your energies are very challenging, but they make you stronger, and there's so much direction and intention typically in Capricorn and Cancer. So I would think, I guess the way I would imagine it with your chart is that you are so ambitious that's what gives you purpose, that's what gives you confidence. And part of this may be, I'm looking at it from the outside. I would suspect that even getting to know you in person, I probably wouldn't suspect that, you doubt yourself or don't feel worthy. I'm sure that, you likely present a very confident persona to others. Having Capricorn placements and Cancer moon, it makes you very private emotionally. So I'm sure. Anyway, but yeah, Chiron in first house. That's great that you're picking up on these things. How to believe that you're worthy. And maybe part of it too is that, you can get, there's a word for this, but, it can be even just doing something as modest as what I'm doing. I have a very small channel, I do readings, it's very humble. I feel like even doing something as small as that, I think you realize you reach certain thresholds where you get to the point where you're like, okay, am I worth this? Am I worth, thousands of, and I'm just using that as an example, but I'm sure that you relate where, I think in many ways we're wired to not accept abundance. We may not be used to it. We may be conditioned against it. It may be a lot easier to say like, no, I'm not that kind of person. I'm not that big. I'm not that smart. I don't have something to offer anyone. So maybe that's, I guess I'm just trying to understand. However, this is going to sound really weird, and I have to be very clear. I think that for you, feeling worthy is going to be very dependent on your relationships. This could be, many different kinds of relationships. This could be social, like friendships. This could be a romantic relationship. It could even be like family. Especially with work, though, people that you are working with or serving. All of this, I think, using your autonomy, your ability to choose which relationships you engage with and how you engage with them. I think a lot of this may be very fundamentally important to your own self-worth. Because, again, 7th house is all about partnerships and other people. Your sun is there. Sun is all about, ego, self-worth, identity, my uniqueness, believing in my own, uniqueness and energy, right? And it's in 7th house Capricorn, though, so it's dependent on feeling accomplished, feeling like I did something for someone, or feeling like I worked with someone, or feeling backed by relationships with people who respect me, understand me, they understand my vision, they're helping me in some way, I'm helping them in some way. You know what I mean? Like things like this, I think. Having a good network, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. Working maybe, and I'm sure you probably already do this to some extent maybe, but maybe working with clients in a way that really capitalizes on your strengths. I would think that to me, I feel like I do that with what I'm doing, and the feeling I get is, like no other. It's like the best drug, you could say, where someone gave me like a really difficult, dark problem, and I felt like I knew exactly how to handle it. I knew exactly how to answer it, and they said that it helped them a lot. That's just an example. Again, it's not about me. I'm just saying that's an example. That's what makes me feel pride. It makes me feel worthy. It capitalized on my unique strengths. I would think that would be very relevant for you because your sun is in the 7th house. You're not going to be happy just doing something for yourself and just living on your own. Your self-worth, pride, worthiness, it's directly connected to how you are interacting and relating to other people. Okay. And again, it's in Capricorn, so it's all about duty, dedication, obligation, providing a service to the world in some kind of way. So I don't know. I don't know the nature of your work exactly, but I would think that would be a big part of it. That would be my main thing. And you could break that down astrologically. Worthiness, is that what you said? Where to go? I'm trying to bring up your message. How to believe I am worthy. Yeah, to me that is sun, and sun's in Capricorn. So this means that you challenge yourself. You've had a lot of challenges, in your life, and you challenge yourself as well. You're not going to feel worthy unless you really deserve it. Okay. It's not, and I'm not saying you don't deserve it just because you don't feel it. I'm just saying that like you have high standards for yourself, so just recognize that too, go easy on yourself, recognize what you have accomplished, because I'm sure it's a lot. I already know that it's a lot, and I don't even know you really. You've accomplished a lot and will continue to accomplish a lot. Like, give yourself credit where it's due. Realize that you're very hard on yourself. Those who have, strong Capricorn, and you have more Capricorn placements than maybe any chart that I've seen. So just recognize that you're hard on yourself, okay? And this in itself is not necessarily bad. This is what, you go the extra mile. You push yourself so hard because of this, and that's great. It's great that you accomplished a lot, but just recognize that you do have high standards for yourself. You push yourself hard. And, I'm not saying to lower the bar at all. Those high expectations are great, but, give yourself credit where it's due. Another thing too is Capricorn's always focused on the long term. It's like they're focused on the carrot that's dangling in front of you that never comes. Enjoy the fruits of your labor. What's the point of all of it if you are not celebrating your accomplishments, and if you're constantly focused on the next thing? Yes, that's great for being ambitious and accomplishing a lot, but again, what good of it's all about the balance. This is where go to Cancer Moon, go to appreciate what you've done as well. Maybe just focus more on that as well. Give yourself, like, some people struggle with not pushing themselves hard enough. I would think it would be the opposite for you. You need to learn maybe when to take a break, when to celebrate yourself, when to go easy on yourself. You know what I mean? So that's the other thing I would say too. Like, on the one hand, yeah, I think I said what I want to say. Yeah, and I was gonna say, you're not gonna feel worthy unless you really, really deserve it. But you probably already deserve it. I don't know, but you're already portraying a lot of self-awareness. Even just recognizing these things, you already, like this statement that you said, how to believe I'm worthy. In itself, I think it suggests that you are conflicted, because you believe that you should believe that you are worthy. You want to believe that you're worthy, but part of you still doesn't. And so there's a detachment there. There's a self-awareness. So I don't know where I was going with that. Just that you on some level that you are worthy. Just by that statement. If you want. if you want to know how to believe you are worthy, that means that you want to believe that you're worthy. That means that you, on some level, believe that you're worthy of feeling worthy. Am I making any sense at all? So I guess just maybe even just recognize that on some part of you already feels worthy. Maybe. At least, I don't know if that's too, getting into semantics and things like that, but that's how I would analyze that statement. How to find your place as a leader. Now this one really surprises me because I feel like I should be asking you for that. You have all these Capricorn placements. You've got even Cancer Moon. That's cardinal. That means you initiate with emotion. People with Cancer placements can be very persuasive, let's just say. So that, Cancer is the mother. The mother is, of course, a leader. Mother is the leader of the household traditionally, whatever. Mother initiates through that, initiates through nurturing, initiates through emotion. But yeah, again, and then going back to all these Capricorn placements. So I'm surprised that you, on the other hand, though, with all your placements in 7th house, that is different. Disregarding the signs, if we just focused on all your placements being in the 7th house, that to me is not a leader at all. That is very codependent, very much needing other people, focused on other people. And that's not a bad thing in itself, but maybe that's a part of this, though. So I think it's, combining the two. At least that's, of course, this is all astrological in nature. I'm coming into this question from an astrological standpoint. Combining the two. You are meant to be a leader, but you're meant to be a leader through other people, with other people. Either having a business partner where the two of you work together, bounce ideas and energy off of each other, or working with clients one-on-one, but like, again, the example of Capricorn being, the CEO in the corner office, I don't think that's what you want. That's what most Capricorns want. And yes, you do have a whole bunch of Capricorn placements, a whole lot of Capricorn and Saturn energy, which, again, that would typically indicate the king that is in the, or queen that is in the, they're known by everyone. They're a very public figure in that regard. They may come out to give speeches and, very public appearances. And yet they spend most of their time, hidden away in some palace or some room. The CEO in their corner office is a great example. That's typically how Capricorn is. But you are not going to want that. You are not going to be, you may still be somewhat removed in that kind of way. But again, it's all about partnership for you. So maybe you're in your corner office, but you're with your advisor that you're super close to, or you're with your co-CEO, or you're a queen with a king, or I don't know. Does that make sense? So there's some kind of element of partnership in the way you are a leader. You're definitely meant to be a leader, definitely an initiator. I wouldn't question that at all. It has to involve other people, though. So what did you ask? Let me pull it up again. So in a backward kind of way, I think if, you're saying that you haven't found your place as a leader, maybe you just haven't met the right person yet, or the right people. Maybe there's someone that you're meant to kind of work with in some kind of way. I don't know. I wonder what your thoughts would be on that. I'm going to leave it at that. And if you want to continue talking, we can definitely do that. I'm not sure. I don't know. Other than that, yeah, I'm not sure what else I would say other than that. That's the main thing I see. And that would kind of tie in again to, being selective with other people, searching for those partnerships that you can really rely on. Someone, with a similar vision to yours, or someone that you can mutually benefit one another because their vision is either similar to yours or it aligns with yours, it crosses paths with yours. Looking for these things, looking for those potentially really great, beneficial relationships. How to believe I am worthy of meeting my person and dealing with all that emotional intensity combined with Venus in Aquarius. So this is interesting. So when you say you're meeting your person, I'm assuming that you're talking about, romantically. Yeah, and for you, again, it looks like you have a lot of high standards. You want things to be done in the right way. You want to be responsible. You want to make sure that you're very mature before you involve yourself with another person. That's what I get from your chart. Um, and hmm. God, yeah. I mean, I like these questions because I think they're kind of challenging me. How to believe I'm worthy of meeting my person. I mean, maybe you just haven't met the right person yet. I think a huge part of it is, like I said, acknowledging that you have very high standards for yourself. I would speculate you're very tough on yourself. Go easy on yourself. You're fine. Like, relax. Celebrate yourself. Of course you're worthy. You know that on some level. Celebrate your accomplishments. You like, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but your chart looks super ambitious. What have you accomplished? What have you were saying that you had a lot of tough circumstances growing up. Even just surviving that is an accomplishment, and having the level of self-awareness that you seem to have, wanting wanting to understand spirituality and astrology, and even that is a huge accomplishment. Most people don't want to talk about this stuff. They don't want to think about any of this. Let's just push it back. It's a lot easier to develop like a drinking habit. You know what I mean? But you're not like that. You want to, let's not sweep this under the rug. Let's face this. Let's grow. Let's tackle these things head on. You want to learn. You want to figure things out. You want to, even just all that, even just everything, that I can gather, is a huge accomplishment. So, cut yourself a break. Like, you are doing the work. You've done a lot. You are doing a lot. You will continue to do a lot. um so that's what I would say about that. And when it comes to meeting another person, of course you're worthy of meeting someone. Why wouldn't you be? I don't even know how to answer that. And okay, this may sound backward, but part of this could be about partnerships as well. So like, with all your seventh house placements, I'm really wondering the state of your relationships. Your friends, your family, these are going to have a huge impact on how you view yourself and the world and how you relate to the world. In other words, your whole identity is kind of dependent on your partnerships, on your relationships, professionally, romantically, friendship wise, familially, family wise. So when you're asking these questions, I'm wondering the state of those. Do you have relationships that are toxic, or do you have maybe a lack of strong relationships? Those are the questions I'm asking. And so maybe, you could ask these questions as well for yourself. Because I think having, strong connections with people that you can really trust and really count on, that's going to be imperative for you feeling like you can conquer the world, feeling worthy. You know what I mean? And again, that could be anything. That could be, maybe you're really close to your brother or friend or neighbor or coworker, business partner. It doesn't matter what the nature of as long as there's someone close to you that, you can trust, you can count on, they understand you. They, you know what I mean? Like, that's going to be really important. Having at least one, preferably 2, 3, 4 really strong partnerships in your life. Like, you really look like more of a kind of an introvert based on your chart. It looks like you can be very outgoing, but it's really important for you to have those, your inner circle people that are reliable, strong, positive, etc. So that's what I would look at. And then the second part of that is dealing with the emotional intensity combined with Venus in Aquarius. So Venus is in the 8th house, but again, I don't view that as if anything, 8th house and Aquarius both, to me, seem a little bit passive or inexpressive. Um, so you may have strong feelings romantically, but you may not know what to do with those feelings. It's sort of unnatural for you. You may keep these feelings to yourself. You may be awkward when it comes to expressing these types of feelings. Does that make sense? That's how I see it. I don't see it as emotionally intense. Others might see Venus in 8th house and be like, oh, that's like Scorpio, you're feeling super strongly and super passionately. I really don't see it like that at all. If anything, to me, again, it's more of a detached placement. It's more of you being very deep, very subconscious, understanding people romantically on a very deep level, wanting someone who is like that as well, someone very deep in nature, if that makes sense. The only other emotional intensity I would see would come from Moon in Cancer. You could be very emotional there. But Venus in Aquarius to me just suggests that you are attracted to someone less emotional than yourself. I know I'm kind of contradicting something I said earlier, but okay, let me put it this way. So you're emotional in the sense that, you can be very somber, you can have very deep moods. On the one hand, you're attracted to someone who wears their heart on their sleeves, who's more expressive of, passion and attraction and things like that. So in that sense, they could be called more emotional, sort of. On the other hand, though, you're attracted to someone who is not so emotionally serious as yourself, or, someone more fiery in nature. So someone more emotional in the sense of like upbeat emotions, like super happy, or if something goes wrong, they might be frustrated or angry, but they don't deal with like the somber, the melancholy, the sadness that you do. Does that make sense? So I don't know. So anyway, that's how I see those placements working. Moon in Cancer suggests that you are emotional. Venus in Aquarius suggests that you may want someone more expressive than yourself of passions and feelings. But on the other hand, Venus in Aquarius also indicates that you're wanting someone probably a little bit more detached than yourself. So to me, these actually don't clash at all. They only clash in the sense that you're wanting someone a little more detached or upbeat than yourself, maybe. And I'm not judging at all. I'm just saying, you're wanting someone like Sagittarius or Aquarius. Sagittarius can be kind of emotional, but again, it's more constantly fluctuating. They don't really take things so seriously. Moon in Cancer would take things more seriously. It's more heavy energy. You're wanting someone lighter than yourself. Someone who, you're not wanting someone else with water placements that's so deeply emotional. Does that make sense? So that's how I see that. The way I see it, I really don't see these placements actually clashing, really. They are different in nature, but I don't think they clash really at all, because it's not unusual to be attracted to someone different from yourself. Does that make sense? How to find work where I'm not exploited. Aren't we all looking for that? I'm just kidding. How to find work where I'm not exploited and in my shadow Capricorn overworking and controlling states. Right, but actually using your charisma and Gemini gifts to actually have fun. Right. So yeah, having Capricorn placements, you can be a bit of a martyr. I've seen this before for sure. And part of this too, again, this is also part of, 7th house is focusing on other people, working for other people. You may be independent in the sense that you take care of yourself, but at the same time, 7th house is almost kind of codependent. It's, you may find it easier to start, honoring other people's states more than yourself, or not taking care of yourself, I guess. I think the point that I was trying to get to is finding autonomy, which is unusual because your South Node suggests that you come from a place where that autonomy was very familiar to you. But connecting back with that maybe, and doing things for yourself. How do you benefit from this situation? Being a little more selfish, self-focused. I think that's something that could actually be beneficial for you because of all your seventh house placements. You may get stuck with doing what you're supposed to do, being responsible all the time, doing what's expected, helping other people. All that's great. But again, just stop. And I can connect this to what you were talking about earlier. Maybe stop and take a walk outside and meditate on the fact, focus on the facts or on the idea, on the focus on, what do I want? Let's forget everybody else. What do I want? And I know that can be a catch-22 because on the one hand, I keep saying your partnerships are so important, but it's almost kind of backward. Those partnerships are important for cultivating a stronger sense of identity for yourself. Does that make sense? So, I would say, take breaks, exercise, or meditate about what you want. Make sure it's not bad to be self-focused, and I actually think it's it's an essential part of having strong partnerships and relationships. How can other people connect with you truly if you are not representing yourself and not acting in your own best interest? Others won't even know where you're coming from. They don't know anything about your needs or your wants. You know what I mean? So I wish I had better advice, but that's all I can think about is, maybe exercising, taking a walk, taking a break, and just focusing on yourself and what you want, and again, it all ties together. It's all about moderation, treat yourself, it sounds like you work hard and are very hard on yourself. Treat yourself to something delicious and nutritious. You know what I mean? I definitely don't think you'd be someone that's going to enjoy I'm going to treat myself. I'm going to get drunk or eat a bunch of cake or something, something that's not truly in your best interest. It can be both, find the things that are fun and healthy and allow you a small amount of healthy escape. Is that a crime to indulge in that? Many people find escape in their exercise routine or in, I don't know, maybe even in your diet, in, cooking something that's really maybe easy and nutritious. I don't know. Does that make sense? I'm kind of just rambling here, but I don't know about the last part, using your charisma and Gemini gifts to actually have fun. I would really recommend working out. That's something that has helped me because this is something that what you're describing is something a little bit similar. It's different, but kind of similar to something I was struggling with, which is, always adulting. I kind of hate that term, but, always being responsible, planning, thinking about the long term. I was doing a lot with my finances and my work, and I do tarot a little bit. The tarot was telling me I need to cultivate my own inner child, and it was dead on accurate because for me, that was exactly true. For my work, even this kind of stuff, my astrology, for my enjoyment of life, for all of that, I needed that playfulness. I needed that creativity, that childlike energy. And for me, I've really noticed an effect on working out. I'm always looking for these stimulants like caffeine and nicotine that aren't healthy for me. But I'm realizing, working out in the morning, and it can be brief. And it's different for everyone. Find your way of working out. It could be as simple as jogging or something. I will just lift weights. I do a little bit to warm up, and then so I might just do few reps to warm up, and then I just go until I fail, basically. So you let's say you're doing curls, you do a few to warm up, maybe do something else for a little bit, and then just go until you can't anymore. I like that because when I'm not feeling motivated, it's very brief. I can do a whole workout in less than 15 minutes easily, maybe even less than 10 minutes. And yet I got my blood pumping, flowing, and that's even enough to build muscle mass as well if you want that. So that's just an example. I'm not saying you have to work out. I'm not saying you have to do what I'm doing. I'm just saying, that is something, I do in the morning sometimes now, and it gets the blood flowing. It makes me feel more energetic. It gets those endorphins going. There is something to that they say it gets those endorphins going. I think it allows us to have more fun and be more playful. And you're just not going to get any of that if you are sitting all day or even walking. I walk a lot for my job. You're not going to get that, working all the time. It's necessary for us to get that blood pumping, from time to time in a healthy way, not from, stress or alcohol or something like that, but in a healthy way from, moving around, moving our bodies, being in our bodies. So that's kind of a weird, maybe off the wall answer, but I would really recommend working out. Maybe you're athletic, it could be a game, like a sport. It could be jogging, a brief jog in the morning. I don't know, everyone has something different. I think working out can also be very useful for you mentally as well. Not even just what I was talking about, but like in the moment, depending on what you're doing, like jogging is a great example because you can really just spend that time like letting your mind wander, kind of ponder things, reflect on things, meditate on things if you want. You can go for a jog with an intention of, I'm going to focus on this today. I'm going to focus on my self-worth and my accomplishments that I've made thus far. You know what I mean? You can do that jogging or lifting weights or even playing a sport. Well, I guess that'd be different because you have to focus on the sport more. I don't know. I'm just saying. I think that could have a lot of benefits for you, even, beyond just physical health benefits, but mentally, emotionally, get you loosened up. Let's have fun. Let's get that sense of play back, because that's, you're Gemini rising. You need that, just like you're saying. And, that's, I think, essential for work as well. For having creativity and fluidity with our work. I'm almost at 2 hours. Geez. Okay, but I'm also almost at the last one. So how to back myself in order to actually put myself out there with my coaching business. So I feel like by now I've given you a lot to think about that would help you with that. I think we've gone through that framework. I think all these things that we're talking about will help you. And in a way, I can see now that the advice you were giving me is really advice you should give yourself. This is something I've struggled with astrologically. I can tell you all about what's happening next week, and yet do I actually apply it for myself? Oftentimes I haven't, and I've been blindsided by things, that I said would happen exactly, you know what I mean? So maybe you are a little bit like that as well, where you were telling me, well, hopefully I'm giving a correct representation, but you were telling me, what I do. I've studied astrology for, 10 plus years. There's a lot of value in this. I'm changing people's lives. These are things that you said, I need to realize these things for yourself as well. I don't know the extent of your coaching business. I don't have information on that, but it's the same thing though. You have gone through much. You have gone through so many challenges, so much hardship. You just from that experience alone, that it makes you a leader. And also look at your placements. Like, you are clearly meant to be an authority figure, a leader. Of course, it may take time for you to step into this role, but I look at charts all the time, and many people are meant to be leaders. Not everyone, but your chart for sure. What else? Back yourself. My mind keeps going back to the partnerships, because you have so much in the 7th house. You have Sun and Saturn in the 7th house, which both have to do with duty, self-respect, self-image, identity, ego, pride. Both have to do with a lot of those, and both are in 7th house. So that shows that it's all about your partnership. So I'm really feeling or wondering, if you have unhealthy relationships in your life, or maybe just a lack of healthy relationships. I could be wrong. I'm kind of going out on a limb, but I'm really, really wondering about that. Is there someone in your life that is toxic, that is problematic, that is keeping you, going back to engaging with chaos? Or is there someone, talking down to you who is negative, who, keeps you down? Or are you just alone and there's no one hurting you, but there's also no one propping you up and understanding? You know what I mean? Like these are the questions I'm kind of wondering when you're talking about all this self-doubt type of stuff. Because where is this coming from, or is it just from you? Again, you are probably very hard on yourself. But that's my main speculation, and this is already pretty long, so I'm gonna leave it at that. But on the one hand, I don't want to go too far out on a limb because I don't know you. I don't know what your life is like, but I would think that maybe it would be a good idea to reevaluate your current relationships, and especially through the lens of they are important for anyone's mental health and anyone's, perspective of the world and themselves and things like that. But for you especially, it's a way bigger deal than for most people. Your partnerships are so important, your relationships, your network. So maybe, kind of ponder these things. Maybe go for a jog and you can meditate on that as well. I feel like I'm giving you homework. Obviously, these are just ideas, but hopefully some of this helped. And this was different, so I would like to post this publicly as we talked about, so I will probably do that. Okay, but hopefully, I think I was kind of just spitballing a lot when it comes to answering your questions. I was just kind of rambling, just kind of throwing a lot out there. So maybe hopefully I've given you, a different perspective, a different way of looking at things, or just throwing out enough ideas that you kind of, it gets you thinking, or, something like that. That's kind of my intention. But at any rate, thanks for this reading request. It was very interesting. I hope that helped you, and look forward to talking to you later.